Good afternoon. My name is Chase, Chase Freo. Okay, here we go. All right. So I'm the CEO of Alto.io. Before anything else, let me introduce myself a little bit. I was the CMO for R2 Games. A while ago, you have Jared on stage. He was my former CEO in R2 Games as well. I used to live here in Singapore for about 5 years. I was working in finance for both Merrill Lynch and HSBC until I found myself in China and I never came back. And then after that, onwards to China, it's all about gaming. And I think that between finance and gaming, I never want to go back to finance anymore. It's stressful to say the least. Doesn't want to move. There you go. So today I'm going to talk about an idea that a lot of people have been talking about already within the blockchain game scene. And that basic idea of item tokenization, right? Currently, the status quo for games that are not on the blockchain is that a lot of them, or most of them, are very centralized. There's a lot of fees and platform cuts. If you just look at Google Play, for example, or Apple, wherein you basically share at least about 30% of whatever it is that you earn in your app or your game. And there's plenty of monetization regulation. What I mean by that is, as game developers, you are basically tied to how Google Play and the App Store allows you to monetize your games. So basically, that's usually $1.99 or $9 or $20 or however they want to structure the payment method within or payment scheme within your specific game. And lastly would be there is no real item ownership. A while ago, Jared talked about how Second Life and the other games that are out there for a very, very long time has already been doing monetizing things internally in the game, right? But right now, anything that you buy in-game, whether it's items, whether it's characters, if you're playing a game, you don't really own it. It's lent to you because at the end of the day, once the game shuts down, the items are also going to shut down with it, right? So you cannot take that with you. So what are the problems that we're seeing at the moment? The most common type of game at the moment is a free-to-play model, right? Obviously, there is the paid model wherein you pay and you can play the entire content altogether. But one of the most common games that we see right now on the App Store or the Google Play Store is what we call free-to-play. With free-to-play, it's not necessarily free because in most cases, you're actually the product, right? And they do want you to pay further and further. There's several different paywalls within the game wherein if you reach a certain level or a certain extent of achievement within the game, you may have to replenish a little bit and pay a little bit more to move forward. There are games which essentially encourages you to pay so that you come on top of the leaderboards, right? So one of the biggest problems is that at least on free-to-play games is only about 1.8% to about 2.5% of gamers pay in freemium games. What I'm saying is that if you have a free-to-play premium model, you need to have massive users for you to be able to monetize at least 1.8 to 2.5% of that. And that amount of users right there doesn't really come for free, right? As a game developer or as a game publisher, you need to do massive user acquisition. If you don't have relationships with Google Play and Apple, wherein you can get featured on the stores, you probably will not show up on the discovery aspect of these specific stores. So even though your game is great, sometimes it's really hard for you to bring up, make yourself discoverable, and get yourself downloaded in the stores. So because of that, games require high numbers of users to become profitable. And it's a problem because most developers, especially mid-scale to small-scale developers, cannot really afford massive marketing. And obviously, not everybody is very lucky to get a publishing deal. So my co-founder, Gabby, is a game developer. And every year he goes to GDC in San Francisco. So he brings along with him his game. and he looks for publishers that could possibly take his game and publish it. And it's a very difficult task because there's a lot of games out there that also wants to be published. And as a publisher, your resources are tied to the best games out there, or if not, the games that make sense for your portfolio, so to speak. At least this is the data from Sensor Tower. At least in the App Store in the US, 1% of publisher make 94% of the money. And 99% of publishers, when I say publishers, I'm talking about a combination of publishers and games, or game developers, right? 99% of publishers split the remaining 6%. Don't mind the grammatical error right there. But what it's basically showing us is that within the stores in the US, games like that one of Machine Zone or Supercell or Candy Crush or EA, right? These game developers, these game publishers, pretty much makes most of that specific revenue within the stores. And the rest of 99% of game developers splits that small 6%. And that's a huge margin. That's a really huge disparity between big game developers and small game developers. And hopefully, we can find ways as to how we can address that. So what I'm basically saying is that freemium games or free-to-play games is oppressive. It is oppressive because only developers or publishers with the most marketing dollars benefit the most. And you know, in a capitalist world, this is not such a bad thing, right? But you know, it's going to happen at the expense of people that are trying their hardest to break through an industry, but that industry doesn't give back anything to them. So what we're trying to advocate here is that at least shake up the business model a little bit. And how do we give everybody a fighting chance for change, a fighting chance for success, right? Obviously, the big game developers, the big game publishers are already up there. It's not going to change the way they're going to work in terms of their business model. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of them are already exploring the blockchain as well. But the guys in the middle, the small-scale publishers, there might be something that we can do for them, right? So before you have premium games, and then you have free-to-play games. And with the blockchain, hopefully we have games where items and the actual game environment could be separated. Now we're advocating that item-first economy, so to speak. Right there, so it's 5 minutes, I'll make it quick. So when I talk about item-first economy, we're talking about real ownership of game items by virtue of the blockchain. We're talking about the interplayability of these game items from one game to another. We're talking about how valuable it is because it is scarce. It's not something that you can make and make and make within a game because they can, right? There is a limitation in terms of how many game items can ever be created on the blockchain. So what we're looking at here is basically the new paradigm shift, at least on what I believe the blockchain would give us, is that fundamental separation between games and game items. At some point in the future, there will be a lot of people creating items or game items, and there will be a lot of people creating games. And these two entities can interplay with each other and can move from one game to another. So I think this is just an example of some game items that I'm referring to. There's a lot of them out there right now that are in the market, in the exchanges. I think one of the most popular that I think you may have heard already is CryptoKitties. There's a few of them as well that, I did that for you, Jeff, right there. All right, so there's also a few of them right there where basically these are non-fungible tokens. Some of them call it a crypto item. Some of them call it a virtual item. In Ethereum, it's called ERC-721. Obviously, at some point in the future, other blockchains will have something similar in terms of standard of what they're going to call it, right? Or what will it be for other blockchains? So you have games like Crypto Space Commanders, CryptoKitties, CryptoBots, for example, and Axie Infinity. Some of these games are items still at the moment. Basically, there's still no gameplay around it. There are games like, say, for example, Axie Infinity. They're doing a couple of things that enhances what the items are doing, not just being a collectible. So this is how it looks like right now on the landscape. Obviously, there will be more, and there will be challenges, and there will be changes in terms of like how games and items are going to get applied. But the way I'm looking at it really is that there are three things that, or three groups of people that can benefit from this. First of all, game developers can benefit from this. Second of all, creators and item creators can benefit from this, right? What I'm showing you here is that by virtue of the item-first economy, in the future, game developers could go ahead and look into a tapestry of game items that has ever been created, let's say on the Ethereum blockchain. And these game developers can easily go ahead and build on top of these existing items. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can be worked on from that point on, but this is just an example of, I think, how we can move along from building games that are on a traditional sense and then building games on the blockchain. So this is an example. Well, I mean, you know it's Super Mario, right? But what I'm just trying to visualize here is that this crypto zombie right here, or this crypto kitty right there, or that specific potion right there, these are ERC721 items, or it could be any other standard at some point. What I'm saying is that in the future, and I think that could happen anytime soon, hopefully, is that these game items can be playable in one game environment, whether that's an action game in this particular case, or if you take them somewhere else, game developers can use this as a card game, right? So these are not actual games, I'm just making it up, right? But just to sort of like give us an idea of like how it would feel at some point in the future, these specific game items that you've seen in the previous slide can be applied as a card game item as well, right? And game developers can put attributes that are different from how it functions in the first game and turn that game item that you own, for example, into another playable character in a different game. So how does the basic game loop right now looks like for crypto games, right? The very first one we've seen is like when CryptoKitties came out, we're looking at buying and breeding the cats, and then, you know, we get a cat, you buy it with Ethereum. After that, when you're done looking at your cat, or I don't know, like you just want to sell it already, you move it and sell it, you get your Ethereum and you list your cat, right? It's a very simple process. Games in the future, and this is not even future, this is like really, really near future, it's like already happening right now. Like games in the future is more than this, right? But right now, you buy an item, you use it in the game, right? And the value of it depends on how it's being implemented in the game, how scarce that specific item is, but that can be used in the game. And then when you're done using it, or you're done playing it, then you can sell it again. And basically that's sort of like changes the specific cycle. So there's going to be a use case for all of these items, hopefully in the future. I think we have to drive game developers into actually doing that. Some games on the blockchain, as an example, right? So there's plenty of games that can be made on the blockchain, right? It could be a strategy game or a collectible game or an idle game, for example. It could be via Unity or HTML5. It could be on mobile, it could be on PC or browser, right? Some of the games that are very notable at the moment, Ether Online was one of those games that were stopped grossing for a period of time when they released. You have Axie Infinity and a whole host of other games. We have a huge gaming community where they share these different kinds of projects. As an example, Crypto Space Commander raised about $240,000 a couple of months, or I think a couple of weeks ago. by pre-selling their spaceships. So they don't have the game yet. They just pre-sold their spaceships and they raised about $240,000. And now they're actually building the game around it. So what does this tell us? As a game developer, if I create items, there is a possibility for me to pre-sell these items and I could go ahead and build a game after these items has been sold. So I only have about 1 minute, so I'll make it quick. All right, so enough about games, but I'll share a little bit about my project. Talking about Alto right here. So basically we run in the premise of what we call a mint, use, and sell. We're building two types of products, right? One would be the customer or user interfacing products, which are the platforms that we're building. And second would be the not the interfaces, but the SDKs and the APIs that comes along with it, right? Because you want to connect these crypto items back to games. First thing is we're building an item builder. Basically, how does game developer create items, or how can users, any users for that matter, create these items, right? So what we're building is an Alto item builder. I know it's not the most creative name out there, but I'm probably going to change that at some point in the future, but it's just basically to build game items. So what you do is get into the platform, put in your metadata, whatever that is that you want to put in, drag them in, and what you'll have is a crypto item. Simple as that. When you get the crypto item done, what you need to do is to, I'll go to that next time. What you need to do is to create a storefront where you can pre-sell these crypto items. More like a Kickstarter, for example. You can pre-sell these crypto items, and you could go ahead and put particulars on your project, who's the team behind it, what kind of game are you building, basically much like how a Kickstarter would do it, right? And then third, we're also building a wallet. We call it a backpack, where you can actually see all your ERC20 tokens and your ERC721 tokens. The difference is that this wallet would have a social graph function, so that you can build different identities within different wallets, that or different people would have identities in their wallet. They can instigate peer-to-peer trading, because one would see somebody else's sword, for example, and they could go ahead and talk to that wallet and ask, can I buy your sword? And it could also be a gateway for exchanges. It could be a gateway for other game discovery platforms. So, you know, the sky's the limit in terms of like how we can integrate a few things within it. And yeah, that's basically it. I think it's short enough. If you have any questions, please feel free to find me. I did not put in my QR code. I used to do it, but I figured I'm in Singapore and didn't have to do it, but I realized that a lot of you guys are using WeChat here now. At any rate, thank you. If you have any questions, I'm sitting right next to Jared. Have a good day. Okay.